Hello and welcome to episode 164 of the Imperial Truth. My name's Greg, and joining me as usual is Mr. Howard. How you doing, Howard?
I'm doing very well, Greg. How are you doing? You all good after all the holiday season?
Yeah, it's been tough. So this is coming out not long after the last episode came out, or part 2 of the last episode came out, which was recorded halfway through last month and just about released within December. It's I don't think mine's been as bad as yours per se, but it's been tiring.
I'm over it now. I'm over it. It's fine. I'm much more philosophical about it now. But I think both of us have had a trial this.
I suppose the one good thing about being really ill is you don't have to be rushing around trying to meet people and stuff like that.
Well, you'd think, but it's when you're the one who had it first.
True.
And then you are over it. And just to summarise, and I won't go into detail, I picked up the winter vomiting experience. That was a lot of fun, and proceeded to not realise what it was entirely, not kind of take it as seriously as it actually is, and proceeded for it to rip through the social season that is December. Has its drawbacks when you're meeting a lot of young children, because of the ages we both are. There's friends that have young children, and turns out they have a tendency to spread these kinds of things. So that happened, and proceeded to rip through the entire family over the Christmas period, effectively cancelling our holiday season. Christmas and New Year was put on hold.
But it's all right now because baby will be going to nursery soon, so they can bring everything else back as well.
Yeah, let's really test out the immune system. So that was a challenging experience of managing different agendas and sicknesses over the holiday period, and yours was similarly challenging, but for different reasons.
Not quite as ill, but still not feeling great, and baby not feeling great, and then going around different family members' houses each day for what seemed like 37 years. And you're just like, oh, cool, week and a half off for Christmas. Oh, it's the last day. I might get a half an hour of hobby in.
It's that.
I hate it. It's so frustrating. I'd rather be at work.
There is something weird about it. Like, you're like, oh, that's great. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to put this aside. I'm really looking forward to doing that. And it just doesn't happen. Like you say, with the regular schedule that you're normally on, it's easier to get in hobby time and otherwise. This period is not one of them. It is not one that allows you any that sort of time. I have these lofty aims, and they just disappear straight out the window.
It's the let's go visit so-and-so. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why? It's going to take 6 hours. Why?
Yeah.
But hey, can't we just sit in our house for a bit?
Yeah, and just veg out. But no, it's not that. That's not that. Can't complain too much about those, can you, really?
No, it could be worse. Mrs. got too many friends. The fundamental aspect of it. She's got too many friends, whereas my friends will be like, oh, mate, how you doing? Good Christmas? Yeah, sorted. That's it. That's all we need to do.
So both of us pretty light. I've also semi-moved house, not returned to our home. That was turned out to be large. I think I can assure everyone that moving hobby stuff continues to be one of the worst things to do. It just sucks. There's no way around it. So I'm devoid of any hobby for some time, really, of anything meaningful. But hoping to resume that shortly. January, new start, new everything. Hopefully, new setups. What about you? Got anything on the bench?
Loads of way too much stuff. We'll talk all about that later. That's fine. Before we go anywhere, let's talk about Element Games. For all your fancy Element Games needs, all your toy soldiers, all your paint, all your glue, all your whatever else they've got, new battle forces, 2 thin coat paints. Are they still doing they had a airbrush sale going on very recently. They always have a clearance section. Sometimes can be worth a little bit of a look. Some random stuff in there.
They were doing quite a good price on the Cult of Paint airbrushes. There's a few more. The Gulp Paint did a tie-up with Harder and Steenbeck, which is my airbrush of choice. I think I'm a fan of those. Those
If I was buying one and had the money, I'd be buying it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the European ones. It's a sort of choice for
German. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I say European. Those in the European market, including
sorry. Yeah.
as versus Badger being the US, seems slightly easier to get a hold of.
Yes, but yes and no. I think they're different as well. I just think the Harder Steenbeck are better. Badger's a workhorse, but particularly if you live in the UK, where only one person can sell Badger stuff, and
that's the issue.
they're not really
outside of the
interested
US,
in
it can be a
selling
bit of
it.
a pain. Yeah.
Yeah, but what we got, a Cult of Paint Evolution on here is currently 136 quid, and Infinity is 212.50. They're listed as 250. I don't know if that's a regular discount.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's quite heavily discounted certainly from what it was. There's a few people doing tie-ups with Harder and Steenbeck, doing their own kind of versions of the core range.
Are they still doing the Kiev?
I believe so. I believe there is a.
So a while ago, I think Caleb was going to come on. We were going to chat about it, and then life happened, and then we haven't really chatted since. But they're doing a brush where they're giving profits to support the. Well, I don't know exactly how the money's getting used, but it's going into Ukraine, which is good. But I haven't got the details. But you can check that out as well. But yeah, if you want to go and if you're looking at a new airbrush, you can check out Element Games for a variety of airbrushes.
The other thing Element is good for is I believe they're the only. Well, I might be going on a limb here. I think they are the only distributor in the UK of Monument Hobbies paint and paints and other hobby supplies, and they have released a couple of new sets of colours for those who. Their paints generally review well amongst the many paint ranges that we have the pleasure of picking from these days. And they generally review surprisingly well. And a couple of well-known painters, Vince Ventrella and Ninjon, I think have done some kind of tie-up with Monument and released some specific colours that they recommend or wanted to see used. Some interesting things there, which Element will be putting forward, I'm sure.
A new range here called Express Colour.
That's Vallejo's answer to contrast paint.
Oh, is it?
If you want to be
not
straightforward, they are reviewing quite well.
Cool.
Or what's his name?
They also sell
Juan somebody. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten his surname. Anyway, there is a person who is well known for extolling the virtues of contrast.
Juan Hidalgo.
That's the one. Couldn't remember his surname. Part of the Heresy Weekender, I think.
I'm about to say, my buddy.
There you go. Here we go. He knows this man. Circles.
Oh, yeah.
He worked very closely with Vallejo on those to produce those and has some excellent coverage talking about them, as does Starley online. And so there's another paint range that we can all look at.
I didn't realise they sold BioStrip.
Oh, yes.
Element, which is an interesting one. And also you can get your 3D Elegoo 3D printer from them as well.
That's new.
There's the Mars 3 is under 300. The Saturn 2 is 509. But yeah, they got resin and everything as well. So, and of course, if you want Artist Opus, if you want brushes or display things, you've got all them as well. So yeah, basically, whatever you want. I purchased some stuff from Element, and they said it's going to be in on January 13th. And I got an email today saying it's been shipped, tracked as well. So it should be here tomorrow. It's like, that's the result.
It was quite nice that when something comes earlier than expected.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, cool.
All good. So I have bought some stuff. I just bought like some hobby rules and some Blood Bowl rule books and just a kill team. No, not a kill team. Can't even remember what I've ordered. That's bad, isn't it?
I very much need to buy the Titanicus Matched Play guide. I hope that's out of stock.
No, I'm sure it's fine. It's I got a bit of used up my credit kind of thing. So like I'm gonna have to cut back a little bit this year. We were just talking off air about childcare costs and how that much that's going to like rip into our spending. That's right. So I bought some KR foam because I have plenty of KR cases, but I have things like Storm Eagles to store. I've got 2 Storm Eagles. One has no, it's not Storm Eagles. It's the Cestus that needs one. Storm Eagles have got them, but I was like, I need some pluck foam for vehicles for storage for the garage. So I went and got some KR foam and thought might as well add on a Warhammer Underworlds thing to that, and then some Dungeon Bowl stuff. And one of the guys at the club was like, "Has anyone got a Leviathan grav arm?" I'm like, I need another more Leviathan stuff, so I'll just buy a Leviathan and you can have the grav arm because there ain't no way that's getting used in Heresy. So but I've got one with a grav arm on it anyway, so I can get my second Storm Cannon for this one and make another one up. So there was a little bit of Heresy in there.
I did actually I bought a painted Cestus about, I'm going to say 3 years ago, maybe more. It came in a KR case, and it is ideal for that model.
Yeah, I bought some of the half foam as well for some of the smaller tanks, just because I need to be able to put this stuff away on shelves, and tanks are awkward if you haven't got them in a box of some kind. So I will be spending some of my budget this year will be going on more storage solutions in the garage, which is a bit of a pain because no one ever wants to spend money. It's like spending money on terrain, isn't it? It just feels
I feel there's a show in this. I feel let's put that in the ledger.
We're just moaning about
it's certainly
spending
something
money.
you and I are both going to have to take on as a challenge, and I imagine there are others out there as well. I feel there's a roundup there. We could do some research and summarise it.
Potentially, we could give that a go. Anyway, but that's all them done. So, hobby, you haven't got a lot done. I haven't got a lot done. I did buy some Tyranids for
No
Kill
one
Team, but that's
what hobby we've done. No, it's not interesting.
If anyone is waiting for new Hormagaunts, Termagants, and stuff like that, then you can thank me for buying a load, which means there'll probably be some new models out soon. I think they're definitely there are some rumours there are anyway, but it's for Kill Team, it's fine.
I've heard Hormagaunts, not Termagants, strangely.
I mean, they're great models, to be fair. The Termagant. Oh no, sorry, no, the Termagant, not Termagants.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I find.
There must be. I refuse to believe that. But yeah, like the great thing about Kill Team is I'm like, I want these models with these guns, and people are like, why? Because they've never been seen in 40k for years. And I just options for Kill Team. It's fine. How many do you want? 8. Really? Just 8? Yep. Just 8. I want
Which for Tyranid players, sorry, you need 8 what for a base?
Pretty much.
Tyranid players are rolling out that.
I'm looking for 5 Gene Stealers. If anyone's got 5 of the new Gene Stealers that they don't want, they want to send my way. I'll even offer you a little bit of money for them. But yeah, I just can't be bothered to go and buy a box set. It can wait. We'll see. I might have to in the end. But hey, but I do have I have a Whirlwind Scorpius on my desk, which isn't painted at all, but GW sent me, which is very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely, and some. Yeah, it's just stuff building up that I need to get on with. But again, I think we will talk about that a little bit later, as we talk through what we're going to do. Should we talk about what's happened? What Heresy news we've had?
Yes. Let's have a round up, because there has been some. Obviously, it's a funny time of year because it can be a time where you get a preview. There used to be times where you have like a New Year's preview or this is what's coming, and sure enough, they did a look into the future, so that's always going to be worth looking over.
Yeah, no actual proper preview, but we've got LVO coming up at the end of the month. There'll be something there. I think we've got Adepticon. If the registration goes up end of this week, I think it's next weekend. So I'm trying to plan out what I'm doing. I'm a bit gutted with Adepticon because the Age of Sigmar organisers have changed and the Heresy organisers have changed, and I understand they've made things a lot simpler. But the old Heresy crew and the Age of Sigmar crew, they'd have lots of half-day events. So I could do half day and then go and help out or chill out or whatever for half a day, which is much harder to do now for anything I want to do. So I might actually play Age of Sigmar for 2 days of the event, but just try and borrow 4 giants, because you can have a 45-minute game doing that. So I then still have time to go and walk around and look at stuff. I
I've
need to
seen some
plan
interesting
out.
discussions on that sort of topic over playing events, multi-day events particularly. The difference between taking a complex, many model army versus I brought 3 shadow swords, or I brought
So
3 knights, or something like
yeah,
that. And it just the people who are doing that are kind of 1, 2, 3. Right, I'm going to chill out for a bit. Whereas there's other people going, Christ, I'm going to move this.
it
We've got
depends
this
what
complex rules and
depends
whatever.
what you want from the event, and some people
Yeah.
get fed up of pushing 4 giants forward and the game being over fairly quickly, because you don't have to play like that, but you can if you want to. Particularly if you don't think you're going to win, you can just be like, screw it, let's just go for it. If I get lucky, I might win. So yeah, for me in that instance, I can have good games, but also I can be like, I really do want to go and look at some stuff. Let's be very aggressive and see how it rolls out. I
It's less
went to
draining, I think.
Yeah, as well. But yeah, I went to South Coast GT a few years ago with Age of Sigmar, and I took the change host, which is Cinch, and you'd be able to swap units around on the table. And I played my first 2 games with it on the Friday night, and I then played 6 tournament games with it, and I got up to table 3 or 4 for the last game, and luckily, in a weird way, the bloke's army was perfect to wipe me out, and he did. But I was blown to pieces because it is mentally taxing,
Exactly.
and I hadn't done it, and it's a lot of models to move around, and that was a great challenge. But I don't want to do that at Adepticon. The beautiful thing for me for Adepticon was it isn't. It could be about the tournaments, but for me it wasn't. So I'm looking at things like Carl Tuttle used to talk about it all the time. There's a Space Hulk game that's played a number of times through the weekend, and there's 6 teams, Space Hulk teams, 6 players can play it, and you each get your 5 Marines or whatever, and you're on the same board, and then they're running the Tyranids. It's supposed to be amazing, but they only do like 6 of them over the whole weekend, or maybe 4, so like really limited spaces. So going to rush to try and get that. I'm not going to do any hobby courses. I'm flying over I booked my flights with Neil Hollis. He's on the same plane as me. Maybe we'll sit together. I don't know. But so if I wanted painting tips, I've got 3 hours sitting in the airport with him on each side.
Amazing.
Telling him I'm not going to paint whatever, non-metallic metals. Um, so I don't need to do that, but I want to be able to meet my mates in Age of Sigmar, Heresy, 40k, all that, and I want to be able to hang around. So I will probably take some Blood Bowl and some Kill Team because it fits really easily in a small box, but I don't want to take over a
No
big army.
Titanicus?
Do I want to take Titans over?
It's as easy, I would just argue, it can
No,
be as easy as
no
Blood
way.
Bowl.
No way. Blood Bowl is, 14 figures?
Yeah,
14,
all right. Yeah,
28
fair.
mil figures?
Yeah, all right, fair enough. It's
Like,
one of those. It's one of those A5 cases, isn't it? Yeah, all right. That's one of those.
yeah.
But yeah, okay. Yeah, it's still relatively. It's not as hard as a full army.
No, and there are ways. My first Adepticon, I took over a Khorne Demon army. When I went and played Heresy, I took over my Custodes. Like, Custodes is easier because I don't have to put vehicles into it.
Yeah,
But I just can't be bothered to
yeah,
do
yeah.
that,
It's
frankly.
a faff. It's a worry, certainly.
Yeah. So last time I went, I borrowed John Christensen's Ultramarines, which were awesome. That was really cool that he lent me that, and I borrowed an army for Age of Sigmar as well. I know quite a few locals that are into Age of Sigmar, so I can borrow stuff off them. So I say I might do that again, but as much as anything, it's going out there and meeting people again. It's been a while, so. But yeah, I'm going to try and get on the Space Hulk. There was one other thing, a GW preview, because there's that. So that's March 22nd. That's the day we fly out. So just as long as we don't get delayed or anything, I should be able to get into that, even without a ticket. You can some people won't go. Will get a ticket for it because it's free, but then not go, or they'll make space. But that's quite a fun experience. So
Of course, is one of the big ones, isn't it? It's one
yeah,
of the sort of signature.
one of the three, mate. There's Nova, Adepticon, LVO.
So
I
they're the
haven't
big.
been to Nova, but
They're the big
Adepticon's
ones
cool.
outside of Warhammer Fest.
They're the big ones in America.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have nothing like any of
No,
those.
no. But in terms of
LGT
previews,
tries, but it's not the same.
they don't support that, and so they don't. GW don't
Well, not even
have a preview.
without that. Even without that, they might have a huge event for 40k. They might have other events going on, but the other events aren't quite as big. And then there's not the whole, because of where it is, Lee Valley Sports Centre. There's not the environment around it. So even LVO, people go out onto the strip. Whereas you walk out of Lee Valley Sports Centre, and
Yeah.
you've got a temping, but a cinema or something right next door to it. That's
Mm.
it. So you have to go somewhere else.
Mm.
Although considering going to the LGT this year, I don't know what to play because I'm not a massive fan of the way they run the Heresy. Not that it's bad, it's just not for me. I might just go and chill out and hang out with mates again, like old school. But yes, but that's all. So Adepticon's coming up. I say we got LVO coming up as well, but we did have some news.
Mm.
So what did we have? We go back to a Typhon. It's pretty much the first thing.
Yes.
Classic
Yes.
Typhon.
There had been rumours, and it was a logical step that having with the Spartan, you could easily make the Spartan hulled vehicles. And the Typhon is the first of those, one hopes or one suspects. And yeah, I thought it was a cool looking kit.
What makes me laugh? So the Typhon is not the beast it was once,
No.
and definitely not the beast it was when Heresy first came around. And there were two of these on a lot of tables, if not three. But what makes me laugh is people responding to the Dreadhammer siege cannon rules, going, "Whoa, that's quite good." And it's like it's been in the book since the edition dropped, and we all overlooked it a little bit to start, I think. And yeah, it's it's AP3 base, but it's rending 4 up, large blast, brutal 4.
Yeah,
So
that's tasty.
yeah, and sunder and ordnance 1. So it can do other things. It's only one large blast, fair enough. It's only 24-inch
24-inch
range,
range as well. Yeah.
but it's a fastish tank that's quite tough. And people are like, oh, Terminators get rerolls against it. Heavy troops get rerolls against it because it's a blast. It's like, yeah, but you're gonna make 4 4 saves for every wound. And if those are rending as well, like it's not, and it's strength 12. So things like javelins are instant death. Automata, a lot of automata are instant death. Some of the stuff that's got what's a battle hardened rule, instant death.
I found it quite. We played a mega game not that long ago, and had one of those rolling around, and it was very handy to scare talons of contemptors.
Yeah,
they got very nervous.
Yeah, the brutal 4 is really good for that, and you're wounding on 2s, and the rending as well. Obviously, Custodes are going to hate these, but yeah, it's not the beast it was, but you certainly can't just write them off either.
No, it's potent, but it is a Lord of War.
That is the one big downside to it, is a Lord of War. But it's a beast. It's a beast of a kit, so it's all good. I quite like it. I need to.
I just looked awesome as well.
Yeah.
For certain legions in particular, it just oozes certain legion style, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it's cool, and it's not supremely heavy and horrible like the original, which is always good. Then what do we have? Alpha Legion. Oh, no, sorry, not Alpha Legion. Wordbearers. They were next. Which actually, stuff it. We'll talk about these and the Alpha Legion that are just previewed today at the same time. What do you think of the Wordbearers heads?
I liked them, actually. I thought they were cool. I thought they stuck to a certain aesthetic that has gone quite well with the word bearers. I thought it was quite a cool one.
So we talked about last episode that we felt all the best helmets ignored the Mark 6 aspect of the Mark 6 helmet. I mean, the Bearhead's lovely. The Demon Infused helmet is lovely.
Yeah, that is cool.
If I compare that with the Alpha Legion, which the Bearhead is lovely, the Sergeant Head is cool. What do you think of the Alpha Legion helmet?
I saw those earlier, and because I was quite nervous about those. I actually think that's one of the best takes on a variant Mark 6.
Yeah, so I don't think the front on look does much for them.
Yes.
I think the side on look on that one little cutout shows you they've got a modified beak.
Mm.
The I almost think they look better close up. Certainly, when they're all together like that, they look like they've got gold lines everywhere. When they're on models, it's less, because it's the head of one dude, so it's less busy. When you've got just 9 helmets together, 10 helmets, it looks a bit, it looks a bit busy when they're all together. But I think because they are Mark 6 this year as well, but they've both of them have kind of taken the Mark 6 helm and kind of drawn areas of it away.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to it. Like
the one they showed off for the Alpha Legion, for me, is the weakest.
Yeah,
and I
you
think
think?
it might be a colour choice issue, showing the snout, if you like, in silver
I quite
compared
like
with the
that.
others. I agree with you, but I think that works particularly well on looking at the photo here. The first of the 3 different variant designs, with the one that's got the sort of split down the middle,
Sure.
and the split is in silver, and the rest of the helmet's in blue. I think it works particularly well on that. I think probably the one they've shown is my. I
Least
like them
favorite.
all, but it's my least favourite. But I like them all
Okay.
in terms of those. There's a very elven look to them.
Mm,
There's a certain
yeah.
style of that. The sergeant head particularly stands out, and like you say, the bear head. They smashed most of those bear heads. Those bear
Yeah.
heads in general all
There's
look
not many.
really good, but there's something particularly alpha
It
about.
makes me laugh because particularly that paint job of the silver bit there kind of demarks the faceplate as being an area and then the rest of
Mm,
the head being an area and then accentuating part of it.
mm,
And both those helmets seem to have done the same thing. And
mm,
that seems to make the Mark 6 work with funky design on top.
mm.
And you wonder if some of the other designs, if you painted them slightly differently or
Yeah.
if you could delineate those different parts of the helmet, whether you could get something out of it.
This also really shows off, particularly the Alpha Legion one, shows off that seeing them in hand, I think it would be really helpful. The
Yeah.
photos here are very tricky. The front on photo is very tricky to judge these.
It might be a case of waiting for someone else to get them.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. Like, unless you're at Warhammer World or the Citadel or Tottenham Court Road, you might not be able to see these in hand unless someone in your
It's a
group
bit of a
gets them.
shame. It's a bit of a shame that they don't make more of the 360 views. I mean, that would be hard to
Yeah.
do with these. What do you do? Each helmet individually, 360
No, but
views.
you could choose one. You could have
You
one.
could. You could. Because, for example, that photo they show, there's only that sort of little thumbnail photo of essentially a side profile of one of those
Mm.
outdated ones. And it looks really cool. Makes it look cooler than the front on photo, in my opinion. Yeah, I was impressed with those. I thought they were cool, as are the shoulder pads. I thought it was a very cool take on
Yeah.
the Hydra.
The problem is that, we talked about the shoulder pads before, but are they exactly the same as the other shoulder pads? Do you mind? You might not mind that, but they can only go on one shoulder.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
otherwise, it looks a bit funny if they're looking the wrong way.
yeah,
Hey, it is what it is. And then we had, you were talking about the New Year kind of thing. We got it just before the New Year. The first glimpse at next year's models, starting off with Mr. Horus himself, Horus Ascended,
absolutely.
which
The
so
big man.
this was revealed at Nova. I want
It
to
was
say,
quite
which
early.
was September, August,
Mm.
September. So October, November, December. So we're just kind of out of that 3-month window. So I think we can expect that fairly quick. I think it said
Typhon was announced around about the same time, wasn't it?
yes, heralding the arrival. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, will terrifying you before long. Sorted. End of the death confirmed, isn't it? But we knew that was coming out for Thingy Day, Black Library celebration.
Was interesting though. That was the first time I've seen the end and the death referred to as a multi-part. Multi could still mean two.
Two, yeah, that's say 2 is multi. So um, I wonder if
Still find
someone's
it
playing a
odd that they're
fun
not
game
referring
there.
to it as two-part, but anyway.
Yeah. Or I don't see the value in not referring to it as either 2-part or trilogy or whatever. I don't see the
Well, quite.
value in doing that. But I mean, maybe they're worried people are going to go, oh, there's 3. I'm not buying that after they bought 54 books plus
Yeah.
7 more in the seed. Collectors are going to collect. And Garrow's come out this month at some point, which is cool. And then a little video with some silhouettes of what appears to be some kind of jet bike.
Oh, should we go through the video in order?
I'm trying to remember. I was just going to look at the glimpse. I just shoved it up
I've got
there.
it. I've got it in front of me just for that
I'm
purpose.
playing mine now. So yeah, recap of the old the teaser video for 30k.
The first one
Lovely.
appears quite obvious.
Horus.
No, I'm talking about the silhouettes. Appears quite. I think that's maybe the War Master. No, the
Seen
silhouette.
him before. Oh yes, of course, yes. So I forgot the order they came in. Yes, so big blocky tank looks remarkably like a Spartan chassis,
And
but
then
has
it pans round. Yes.
a barrel gun type thing. So would make sense that is the dear old Cerberus.
Not a million. Well, also that barrel of the gun also looking suspiciously like a neutron blaster
Yeah.
or a
So
neutron laser of whichever
again,
flavour.
if you've got that kit and you can make a Typhon out of it, why are you not making us
Exactly.
just makes it? I really hope that people start, and I think people have in their kind of negative, grudging way, those kind of people have started to accept that, oh, GW could just do this with that model, like they haven't thought of it 5 years ago. I was only thinking the other day about 2 years ago we were recording, not long now. 2 years ago we were recording our, something big's happening in Heresy, and remembering back to when no one else, like everyone else, was just bagging on it, thinking about dropping out of it, and we're like, something's happening. It's just a case of when, and we're in COVID, so and it feels like people are just starting to catch up to the possibilities of what's going to happen now. And I think this video has started to really spark people up. So Cerberus in plastic confirmed, as a
Now, the
YouTuber would
next
say.
silhouette, I think, is probably the most intriguing one.
All right. So what are your thoughts? Lots of spikes.
Lots of spikes, a claw.
Spikes on the back of the feet.
Ties up with a lot of rumor engine stuff. There's
Yes.
quite a few, particularly that sort of head dreadlock thing, the claw, the very distinctive claw.
Cool.
Tyranids in Heresy confirmed.
Yeah, always.
Gene Stealers make an arrival at the moons of Imgral, whatever it is. Now, my bet is on either some sort. It was either a demon, but I think more likely it's a sort of Dark Mechanicum assassin thing.
I think that fits.
There's quite a lot of biomechanical in that, but sort of demon biomechanical. It's
absolutely.
I think Phil Kelly once described this, or was once reported as describing this sort of slider from marine to, or whatever, it's from sort of human template through to demon, and there's a big slider about where you are on that scale.
Yeah.
demonified your demon engines are. And this is on the sort of somewhere in the mid-range. I would have said half demon, half mechanicum thing.
Yeah, that's a feed for the weapon underneath, isn't it? Yeah, I think some kind of agent of the War Master.
Yeah, I would assume so. Some sort of equivalent of an assassin.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair bet because it could be something like it doesn't look mechanicum. It looks too much human, unless they're. I can't imagine they're going to dive now into the Dark Mechanicum that deal with the alteration of the Emperor's plan. Like it just seems like they've got enough going on before they start dealing with any of that. Plus, it's one model, and it seems too far away from a Space Marine.
Yeah, agree.
Like, I mean, it could be a Space Marine base, but it seems too
Yeah.
far away from being a Space Marine of any kind.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it appears to have some sort of cannon arm on its left and a claw arm
on its right arm. That cannon's pointing towards you.
I'm not convinced based on the
No,
way.
the cannon's in the front because that hand is behind his leg. As you look at the claw,
suggests otherwise.
No, that claw is curved inwards towards you.
I think it's curving.
And that right arm, as you from the start of the video, I think it's pointing almost directly at you and going across you.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I disagree.
Because I originally agreed with you. I reckon I am sure that is the right arm gun, left arm claw.
I'll play it some more
because that left arm, I'm just scrolling it through so I can go rock and roll. Although on the
no, I'm not sure.
Now I've said that.
I think the depth of field is what's giving it away. I think the cannon
is
away from us, and the claw is towards us.
If you focus on it, either way, it fits. Because I literally went back to it and focused on the claw as being the right arm, and then you're seeing the back of the model.
My eyes
makes sense because of the legs.
My eyes can't deal with that, but yeah, I think.
Can they not?
I can't see it the other way.
What's really weird is when you look at the legs. So you look at the legs as either pointing away from you, but if you look at them as running to the front right of the camera, it works. That's really weird. That's one of them.
It's the curve on the blade are doing it for me. That's really my eye.
Honestly, this is one of those QI when they have the face that's indented and then you turn it. You can see the other way, but I think you're probably right. Actually, I think that right hand is the curved. Cool. We'll soon see. Right, some kind of psyker.
Probably a Space Marine librarian.
Well, maybe. So if you look at the steels at the bottom, it shares. That shares a bit of a silhouette of Nurgle, of Festus, the Leech Lord from Fantasy.
Interesting. Also, the staff is interesting.
Yeah, it's got the Eye of Horus.
Not the classic. It's quite an elaborate model for a librarian model in
Heresy. It's a character.
Yeah. But it's quite a. Yeah, but I assumed it's another one of the console type models.
No, I think it could be a special character.
Oh, a full-on named character.
Well, I think potentially, yeah. No, I'm not saying it is. I think you've got potential for that to be a named character.
What is the name of the? Oh, this is upsetting. I don't know this. White Scar Stormseer.
No, because this is chaos. This is bad guy. It's too many spikes. Yegasai.
Yegatai, that's it. That's
Yegatai, yeah.
You sure? I mean, the symbol. The thing. Well, I thought it might be a plastic librarian with the ability to sort of have him Horus leaning or traitor.
You could
with an Eye of Horus, an Eye of Horus staff or an Imperial.
Oh, okay, I've got it. So yeah, you might be right actually, because that is just psychic. So I'm flicking between the video still at the bottom.
Okay.
And it's doing strange things to my eyes. Yeah, that's a psychic hood, isn't it? So yeah, probably a psyker.
I'm assuming
plastic psyker would be cool.
Librarian console, be it resin or plastic. If it's plastic, I would imagine it would have the ability to be traitor leaning or Imperial leaning with a couple of changeable bits, like the head of the staff. Because that looks like Hive Horus to me.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I went with Traitor.
Yeah. It doesn't look particularly spiky to me, but it could be just this.
No, it's not spiky, but there's just a lot going on. But hey, who knows? Who knows?
The next one I think is pretty obvious.
I'm still scrolling. Oh yeah, what do you think that is?
I think that's almost certainly because of the rules being present in the book. That is Exodus.
Also, they were talking. I saw some people talking about the helmet crest fitting the Alpha Legion style.
Yeah, Alpha Legion style, and the artwork of Exodus, no less.
I mean, could it not just be a Vigilator console?
Could be, but we already have that as a model. I think it's unlikely they would release a new version of that same model.
He's in proper drama pose as well.
Yeah, that looks like a character to me. And given that he, for whatever reason, got rules, if you've got rules in that book, there's probably a model coming.
There should be, absolutely.
Next one.
Although either way, I can see people taking that model, and just as long as there's not too much detail on the chest or wherever, like chopping the head off, replacing the head.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Jet bike with a chainsword and a heavy bolter.
Fly me closer so I can hit them with my sword.
Yeah.
And very cool too to see those presumably in plastic.
Yeah, it looks like a basic jet bike, doesn't it? Which, I have just bought a shed load of jet bikes off someone for a good price in resin, but this might make the Wolf jet bike list. If this is plastic, we'll see jet bikes everywhere for a little while, even with the knock to how effective they are on the table.
I would like to see, I hope they do a Javelin, because I love the Javelin kit.
I think they will. This is part of what I was kind of saying, and maybe we will talk about it a little bit later as well. But basically, they're showing that nothing's off the table. If you look at what we've been getting, like plastic jet bikes, but it's time, because all you hear about now is, why haven't we got more infantry, which is a valid concern. But so one thing, it was interesting. We've been saw some people talking about why would GW release Heresy like this? Why aren't there any Mark II? And someone said that GW are doing what they can to get rid of recasting as a market. And you don't do that by making Mark II Marines, because they don't make money off that. The recasters are making tanks as their main kind of things and stuff like that. That is the one. If you can put plastic out, not many people are going to go and get a recasted tank for cheaper than a plastic one, because it's just not worth the hassle.
No.
So
even if it's cheaper, it's not. It's not so much cheaper. When the difference was,
it would have to be given away for me to do
a
resin.
When things were like a tenth of the price.
Yeah.
All right, and you were dealing with resin anyway. Yeah, all right. That's a different conversation, regardless of the ethics, morality, and everything else. Okay, I can understand it, at least, even if you don't agree with it, and find it fundamentally wrong. But you can understand the logic. When there's plastic, it's a very different conversation. You're like, why would you put yourself through that hell? Anyone who's put together even a Proteus in resin knows doing the plastic one is
and deal with the whatever's gone into your Russian or Chinese resin that's made by people who don't care about laws and things like that, which is a major issue of that anyway. So what do you do to hit that market? You take away the tanks and the jet bikes, right? And that hurts that market. They're never going to go away, right? GW will never stop them, but you can make it much less viable for them to do what they're doing. They're still going to do
convenience is it's been proven to be an issue in other fields.
Yeah, and when you combine that with 3D printing as well, like people are always going to 3D print stuff. Like there's not much GW can do about that, but they can stop the recasters. But then again,
it's still convenience though. It tackles those two problems in one. It tackles those two problems with one solution. You make it more convenient and easier, people will go for it.
Also, they know they know not everyone's getting a 3D printer. Right?
Exactly. It's a
They
fact.
know that's not happening. But what potentially people would do is pay for a 3D printing service. Again, so if they're doing that, but you put out plastic anyway, again, the price difference is going to be negligible.
Yeah, it
So
is.
you might as well get your plastics.
And there's drawbacks when you have it as a 3D printed version.
Yeah.
You won't be turning up at, well, you can risk turning up at an official event, but it's a risk which you didn't need to take if it's in plastic.
Plastic is not as
Plastic
brittle.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
As well. You drop your jet bike and hopefully it will bounce if it's plastic.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't always say that with 3D printed stuff.
No.
So yeah, I think that is a definite. Well, no, I think that GW have probably considered that as part of their approach. They might, yeah, that might not be the main reason to do it, but it makes sense from a business point of view to go, cool, here's that kind of stuff. Don't worry. And you know what? When would be the best time to release another Mark kit? Would be in another box.
Yeah.
Like a year and a half down the line or something like that. So like all that stuff kind of makes sense to me as a business decision. But what this has done now is okay. So as jet bikes, we know we're getting all the Primarchs redone as well. We're getting some more cool characters. They're kind of backing up the commitment to make everything that's in those main books. In the extra stuff, who knows? Don't. But well, I say don't hold your breath. But also, there's some stuff in those extra books which I'm 99% certain is going to get bought in at some point. How they do it, how they get.
What are you referring to then? The extra books.
Well, there's just like who is it? I'm trying to remember which legions now. Some of the legions have got nothing in the Liber book, and it's all in the Ultramarines. Is that right?
I see. Sorry,
like that kind of stuff.
It's the legends type stuff. Yeah, okay.
That's what I meant. Legends stuff. Like they're not putting all of that in there and then just going, you're not having it, because there's legions that don't work that well without some of it. I'm lucky with Space Wolves. It's all in the Liber book really, so don't have to worry about those legends books at all. But I just think like when again maybe we're looking at it from a positive attitude, but why wouldn't you? Because it's better than being negative. But it's all good. Like all these signs are really strong. Plus the fact that they spent I don't know how much on a launch of the game and they're not going to abandon it a year later because that's ridiculous.
It's insane.
No, but that's what some people think.
What's interesting is the level of commitment to it, because just even if you just take it from the point of view of what you're talking about, where you might see it as them tackling a potential threat that they have. That's a hell of a commitment. I mean, you think tooling a plastic kit is tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's a big deal if it's not selling in quantity. So it's with this number of kits that cover the Space Marine range before you get to Legion specific things. That's a lot of stuff, but it seems to be, to all intents and purposes, it's been what we hear is it's been very successful, and it's great that they're going to be able to commit to a large number of those kinds of plastic kits because they're just more fun to work with, and that's ultimately what we're seeking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but also you don't launch Heresy with a plastic starter set unless you're willing to back it up down the line. You don't move, like you don't make a plastic Spartan unless you're going whole hog. It's been obvious, and I understand that some people don't want to get their hopes up as an element of that, but like the signs are all there, really are. You don't commit to 18 Primarchs
again.
again. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. There are a few in there where it'll be really interesting to see how they approach those Primarchs. Particularly with plastic demon princes around and stuff, demon Primarchs around. I don't know.
A very interesting slate of previews, I thought, those.
For sure.
Some in particularly, I thought that slightly unknown thing, the possible agent of the War Master thing, whatever it is, that to me is I mean, we'll touch on this with the other topic we're going to discuss, but I find that a really interesting teaser of what could be to come.
Well, yeah, but I think I almost think that when they sat down and said we're going to put the assassins in, you almost have to think of the other side of that. I think it's
for
it's
sure.
a logical move, but I'm glad they're following it through, assuming that is what that is.
But it's speculation.
Mm.
It's still an educated guess. To start seeing it being turned into something
I
real,
wonder
and then what form that might take, I find exciting.
And we don't know whose decisions processes these are and stuff, like exactly how specialist design studios work in that respect. But assassins are on the edge of what is the war, really, and this, whatever that is, if it's something like that, they're on the edge. If they've got the rules for the astropath and the whatever, and the Davenite warrior priest in the book, but partly because they've had those rules, I think. But they're elements that aren't direct war elements,
No.
and I wonder if there's a bit of a push. Like, I don't know, but I've talked to Andy Hoare enough to know that, and seen what he posts as well, and he's a mate, but we see he's into some of the old school lore and the old school stuff, which delved a lot more into the background, like the edges of the wars and the dark and dirty stuff. So I wonder if it was a top-down thing, like an encouragement.
I still find you get a bit of a glimpse of that, of a particular direction. Might be the wrong word. It's too specific. It's too definitive. But you look at Necromunda and the way they've developed that as a product and as a line, as a range.
Oh, big time.
And you sort of think there's a lot that could borrow there in the way they sort of explore these kinds of things.
I can't remember what it was. A few years ago, something came out and it had a name of a planet in it, and Andy was like, "If anyone can tell me, like, where we reference this planet from, like, you can win a prize," jokingly. And I had no idea. Like, and was trying to look it up and had no idea. I think there's been an active decision to go back and scour the old stuff, and that's really highlighted with Necromunda.
Yes, and it resonates. It resonates.
But I think it's also been shown a little bit in Titanicus.
I agree.
To a lesser extent, and I'd love them to do it more in Titanicus because of the funky, crazy stuff. But
it's why I reference Necromunda more, because I wonder if it's been successful enough. It must have been, to warrant the level of support that it is getting. There's a lot of models, and models you think, well, there's a lot of resources required to design a model kit, particularly plastic kits of that nature. And you think, things like squat miners, that was to warrant a full plastic kit for those, rather than the odd one or two hanger-on type model. You think, and what they're exploring with the hangers on are fascinating as well. You think they're exploring some really relatively niche portions of the older lore and expanding that into something quite significant. And you sort of think that could be a really exciting area for Heresy to go.
But what they've also done well in Necromunda is doing that through the books first. The books have been referencing the old books. They've been talking about the other hives in a much more kind of present way than old Necromunda did.
Way more.
So
massive expanding on what it was.
They've been setting the tone and the expectation for that for newer gamers. Obviously, we're so early in the journey of Heresy, of new Heresy, that we don't know whether that's going to happen or not. But if I had to put a pound on it, I'd say we're going to get some funky stuff.
But it's an interesting reference, isn't it? It's interesting to see that they've developed a range in a particular way, and you sort of feel like there's enough momentum, enough success, call it what you will, behind Heresy to warrant something similar to
the one big difference.
At least,
the one big difference is older references to the Heresy are less common and slightly less formed into the modern 40k universe.
True, but I'd argue there's more material. There's more material out there, particularly. I mean, there's the 55 novels of material in recent times before you even go back into some of the older stuff that's out there. Like you, I'd love it to be a crossover into Titanicus or even into an epic game. I'd love it, but we're miles away from that. We have to be. But let's just focus on the game that's got, no doubt, have had resources put into it to even get us to where we are now, and they're planning 4 years in advance, I think.
Oh yeah, at least. I think the key is to not be surprised by anything.
I kind of want to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. No. As in, to not be surprised by something appearing that you didn't know. Like to not have that negative reaction to that. To not like we are going to get stuff. We're going to get stuff that we're not aware of it, so we can be surprised by it. Don't be shocked by the surprise. That's probably a better way of doing it, because I can see them going, well, actually there is this little element like we've written about in 40k that's like 10 years ago that referenced one little thing. They did this during the Heresy, and it'd be like the small a one-liner and then them to expand on it, that kind of aspect. Or an old story, one of the old stories about one of the Primarchs mentions something specific, and then they pull from that and adapt and push with it.
You can see a part of that. One of the outlets for that, and it's interesting actually that they did it, is the exemplary battles.
Yeah, you're correct.
That is a pure outlet for that kind of thing, where you'll end up with a variant legion, a unit that is specific to a legion and exemplifies a particular way of them working. You could imagine them running with that kind of thing for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean they did that even with the Black Books, like the Raven Guards. Whatever they're called, the Terminators. Deliverers, that's the one that were pulled from the Black Book exemplary battle. They can even dig into those, but there will be the odd gem of a small piece of work, say that's a paragraph long that mentions something, and I can see there being an encouragement from the top to expand on that, because it's also a good way of adding new stuff without being too new, which is cool as well. But we're going to get onto more of that. But I just think what we've had from, I mean, this game's only been out 6 months, ridiculously. In 6 months of releases for all the kind of where's this, where's that, been a lot of stuff out.
Significant stuff as well.
Yeah, and and they made it a frontline game, and you don't do that without committing behind the scenes as well. So yeah, that's cool. But I think we'll talk more about this kind of stuff anyway in the next section, because it's all bleeding around us looking back and looking forwards. So let's hit the music and we'll come back and do that. Okay, well, we are now moving solidly into 2023. We thought we'd just take a few minutes to have a little look back, but also have a little look forwards and look at like our top, well, no, not top three, but 3 things from last year that really excited us, or whatever. 3 things from Heresy last year that got us going, and 3 things we are looking forward to, hoping for, wish listing, whatever from 2023. I'm
looking forward to this because I like how broad we kept this.
Yeah, first actually,
broad.
I'm going to throw something. I'm going to throw something at you. Is there anything from last year that you were like, could have done better? I didn't give
A
Harold
gun.
any prep time for this.
Son of a gun. Instant reaction on that. I feel like, I know why it was done, but
Yep.
I feel like the lack of the other factions, other than Marine factions, at launch wasn't ideal.
Yep.
I feel like
It's
the
such a
weight
GW approach at the moment. Well,
it
it's
is.
such a specialist design studios approach
And
to only have two things really.
what's also interesting is that it has, when you look back on it, as we are talking about now, it doesn't feel as bad. I mean, there's other times, there's other things that GW do where I'm like, can you slow this down a little bit because it's a little bit too intense? You're hitting this with faction after faction or whatever. With this, though, because of the legacy that was kicking around with this, I feel that was a bit of a shame for those whose preferred faction, potentially only faction, were some of these other things, Custodes, Mechanica particularly,
It just
Demons, whatever.
casts a shadow for those people over the release.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it drains a bit of excitement out. Yeah, and as you say, I completely understand why they did it.
Entirely.
And
There's a logic. There's a logic to it. I don't happen to agree with that logic.
And
I
we don't have all the
feel
information either.
also not ideal.
Look, we're outside looking in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably about it for me, really. I think
That was the only real. If I'm looking at it negatively, I'd say that was a shame.
or the lack of communication around it, because you can get away with it if you communicate better. They put up the
you
roadmap.
can get away with it, but I'd have still been disappointed.
Yeah, but what really started to kind of grate was, for some people, was, are we getting militia? Are we getting solar auxilia? What's happening with them? And then not having stuff within those books to be released in a PDF a few weeks later caused like unnecessary worry for certain people, although I think some of it was misplaced.
But still reasonable that one might worry about it. Maybe it was misplaced.
Especially when PDFs
still
were delayed.
Valid that you would be worried about it.
Especially when we had a roadmap that got delayed. Like just let us know. That's cool. That's all we are. I think
and
it just goes
kind of what that's kind of what one seeks when you've got a roadmap is the the roadmap is the form of communication. Just keep that up. That would be great.
Yeah, it's the first step, isn't it?
Yeah, and keep that up in terms of keep it communicated, and that would be fine. But I think that's the way I would have improved. I mean, you think of something like some of the other game releases where they've had major edition changes, and I don't think anything's been quite on the scale of this game. It's a change of edition because of the length of time it existed. You had index type documents that existed that covered all factions. You think it's a shame that that wasn't around. Again, there's a logic to it. I get it, but that doesn't stop it being a little disappointing.
Yeah, I think there's multiple factors in that, and one of the main ones being it's a specialist design studios game still.
Yes, so resources, etc.
Yeah, indeed, and just approach. I just think they have a slightly different approach than GW Prime. I think
any that you had that you think on?
Just trying to think.
Any room for improvement, or?
I mean, there's always room for improvement, isn't there? Again, it's being realistic. Like, I'm not going to sit in and say they should have done this, should have done that, because, like, it's like releasing a game of this size under like 2 years of COVID previously and other issues they've had as well. Keeping up with demand, production problems, all that kind of stuff. It's not easy. I just think communication. I think GW have got so much better that sometimes you think, oh yeah, GW brilliant, but actually they've always been a bit fuzzy with their communication, how much they want people to know. Every now and then they've dipped into, like when the Sylvaneth a few years ago were really delayed. It was released, like we were aware of it, and then got delayed. Like they came out, put a video out, and it's like cool. Like everyone's chill with that, and there's a whole reason they don't give release dates way in advance now. It's because delays happen, and they get more grief for having a delay than they do for not telling you the date in the first place. But I think the communication can always be a touch better from GW.
Have you watched or listened to any of the painting phase?
No,
on
but
YouTube.
it's on the it's video content, isn't it? So it's hard to it's
Yeah,
hard
it is
for me to
slightly
put that into my daily routine when I'm so
schedule.
far behind on watching so
I
much stuff.
think they might be transitioning to also having a podcast. It becomes interesting because they had Peachy joined them,
Yeah,
or of ex Warhammer TV and painter and army painter fame, and they have some talking. They have some sessions, some sort of talk sessions that I found to be really interesting, which are far broader. They're not talking about, say, a specific painting topic. They were just talking generally hobby stuff, but tackling some things. And they were tackling, and they discussed them in very what I think are very reasoned ways. Particularly Peachy talking about the way he reflects on his experiences there and company. They are reflective, critical in some cases, but also positive and what I would consider very reasoned and balanced, not hyperbolic in any way. I thought, and he touches on some of those where he sort of regrets some of the communications or finds it curious some of the communication decisions that were made, and then says other things were done really well, how they overcame certain things. And again, it gives a very interesting insight into what it would be like being a part of that team, specifically one at the forefront of communicating, no less.
And it's majorly hard for any company. Even the size of GW, let's not pretend it's the biggest company in the world, but in our hobby, it's huge. Like, but what they're trying to do is be everyone's friend with Warcom, but also be a big company that has shareholders, that has demands, that has, all those things that go on with it. And it's a fine
people's livelihoods attached to it.
And most similar to computer games, I suppose, in that there or film companies, in that you have an IP that is so passionately loved that people feel ownership of it as well. It's a tricky one, but anyway, Peachy was on the My Life in Miniatures podcast, the season 3, episode 1 today. It was quite interesting talking about him walking in a line with his Imperial Guard unit that he made, or army, where he actually put all of Sharp characters in it, but had to be very careful with how far he pushed that whilst working for GW and having them featured in GW's publications and things like that as well. But anyway, okay, cool. That's pretty cool. So last year, let's just go for it. Give me one of your things from last year that was a highlight.
We did start. I feel we started there on a negative. That was we.
Let's get it out of the way. It wasn't even a negative, was it? It was.
We've got that out of the way on a reflection of how we might do things. Now we're going to focus on
first.
Good things. I like that as sensible. A highlight. I've got 3. I'm going to go. I'm straight in. My highlight of 22 was, which I've just written down here as the hype train. I really enjoyed how much excitement built around it. As you well know, I am a sucker for all of that. I will go all in. Leaks, rumors, hype building, that whole build up to it, I was all in. Every bit of information you could get a hold of, everything. I was just like, yes, something's coming. We've been talking about it and speculating and otherwise for a long time. So to see that come to fruition and other people go along with it and get excited about it, that snowballs for me, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, every now and then I get messages from Howard. I have to calm him down a little bit. It's all good.
I hope that comes across in this.
But I'm less of a hype monster than Howard, shall we say?
I like the way you delivered that, and with the appropriate tone as well.
Yeah, Howard stays up to watch the Adepticon preview and then goes immediately to sleep, whereas I just wake up in the morning because no one else is going to be awake anyway. But there was a lot of hype. I found, well, I suppose part of the difference in that was I was let in on it quite early.
Yeah.
with going to the weekend and the opening weekend and all that. But also with.
But I consider that part of it. I mean, we were discussing that. I was aware, but that was part of it too. It was just like there's a thing. They're doing a thing that they haven't done before. This is awesome. It was just quite cool to see things experimented with, to see something build like that, and frankly, to have something of that scale to talk about was great.
For me, it was more of a validation of what we were doing. Like we're sitting there with our flag stuck in the ground. We go, see, we told you. We told you something was coming. It was cool. There was even so. It was. I think the difference for particularly me being so. Like I'm going to say that Heresy release weekend or whatever it was called. I can't even remember. For me was the one. But tying into the hype thing was we had a Discord group that had almost all of us who were going in it. So we had a very different experience of that hype because guys were like, oh, what's this? And I'm sitting there going, well, Liam Paints Minis has put his finished models up and they look freaking amazing. So whilst people are still looking at grainy images or trying to work out like what you can do, those Terminators are the same ones from the. It's like Liam's has put his up and they look phenomenal, and people are already like converting their Praetors and stuff like that. And within all that, it was also the hype was there, but also a lot of trepidation for me in trying to get it finished and showing it off.
Yeah, I would say that was a portion of it because having that, as you say, having that almost closed session is fine and it's cool and it was great to be a part of that and build something and frankly contribute to that. That was awesome. However, there was pressure involved with that, considerable pressure, which changes the nature of it. And it just, to me, that just then expanded when the rest of the community also got hold of those things and then you're in a non-pressured environment as well. But that wasn't without its challenges, certainly.
Yeah, for sure. And that just meant there was a whole different experience.
Yeah.
On top of having a baby at the same time.
The timing was wonderful.
But that weekend in and of itself, to watch, because also there was a lot of negativity around from within quite a lot of the community, to be fair. Well, quite a lot of the vocal community, should I say. And to be on the inside knowing how wrong most of it was, even after the event when people were giving the facts in inverted commas and knowing actually that they'd got a lot of that wrong as well. Like there was stuff being put around that was being put out not as opinion but as stating what had happened, and there was just a lot of rubbish. But that's going to happen. That's it's fine, and it's not always easy looking from the outside in. I appreciate that, but to see a group who, because a couple of us who are in the Heresy community who were involved or were in the from beforehand, old school kind of thing, were like, oh, is this really like? Are there any more Heresy people they should have invited? And there might have been one or two, but when you consider like the content that gets put out or some of the issues around who's working with whom and how that works with GW and all those kind of politics and things that do get in the way, because part of working with someone needs to be how you're going to get on, how much can you trust them, what are the what are the potential issues. So that's fair enough. Like, that is what it is. If we had a third person on this podcast who was always posting rumors and leaks, like we wouldn't get any support from GW. Like that's just the way life works. Or if we had someone on this podcast who all they did was take cheap shots at GW, well, if they criticised GW, with reason and logic, fair enough. If they just took cheap, yeah, exactly, yeah. If they just slagged them off, then you don't expect to get any support or any help or have a working relationship with someone, and that's fine. But so we sat there and we were like, okay, but it's interesting. We've got people on this list. Really? Okay, let's see what they do. And the excitement levels from them, even from people who said, yeah, I'm probably not going to play Heresy, but this is cool. And it's piqued my interest. And it's developed players, it's developed readers of the lore from those groups. Not everyone's going to stick with it. Cool. GW know that. But
if you
some
can, you
some
still
some
expose it. Also, it doesn't mean you have to be in for life.
no.
It was just something
But
you might
also,
explore.
there's different types of people like Angel Horadas. You get him because he can paint like Angel Horadas.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you need him to do. Paint for it. Someone else comes in who's got a YouTube channel where they play the game. They're going to play the game. Cool. Someone's got a YouTube channel where they talk lore a bit as well as everything else. Well, that's what you'll get from them, and they'll commit to that because that's how they've got to the position where GW want to work with them. So, yeah, and that whole weekend of being up around those guys, being kind of getting that first little look, even Ian coming up, Arbiter Ian, kind of getting a last minute call up to come and cover the thing as well and helping out with that. Gave a whole different view on that hype. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Like, am I ever going to be working with GW in that way again? Probably not. It's probably,
Well, it was particularly
yeah.
well suited, of course, because of what it was. But I just thought,
Yeah, but they didn't have to
board,
ask me. I'm not the greatest hobbyist in the world. There's absolutely, no one's going to argue that I am. I do a podcast which, when you compare me to some of the numbers on there, minuscule. But they didn't have to ask me at the end of the day, and they did. And I feel very honoured for that. And maybe it is a reflection of, I think it's a reflection of the show for whoever's been on it, whether it's you or Neil or Marcus back in the day or the guests as well, that what I suspect happened, well, I know Andy anyway, who kind of helped organise it, but I suspect there was an element of who do we get, and the people at GW who he knows, who he talks to, were like, oh, Greg's a Heresy guy. Let's go and talk to Greg. He's the Heresy guy, But even to be for that even to become around, because it's not about because some of that would have been who do we get to paint these models, right? Let's look at numbers. There's like your Miniacs and your Angel Heraldez and yeah. Of course, it's about reach. Like most of those people were in there to get a new audience,
and specifically, you kind of want to reach the people who wouldn't otherwise have heard about it. Most of the people who were listening to this probably would have heard about it anyway.
That whole weekend wasn't for us. It wasn't for us
at all. No.
No. So yeah, I actually take quite a lot of pride in the show, and I must thank you and Marcus and Neil and all the others that have come on the show, because otherwise it wouldn't be the show it is. And this is why I've had in the past some people say, "Can I come on the show?" And I'm like, "No." It's a show. I don't, and not because I don't like them, but just because they wouldn't fit what the show is and wants to be. And there are different shows. Loads of different shows. You can find the show that you want to listen to, be part of. That's great. But yeah, I think that weekend was something else. Like, as I say, that's not going to happen again for me. We might not even see another weekend like that. Like, when are we going to get a release as big as that again, which isn't just new edition of 40k? Like, you know what I mean?
I do, and that was immediately what I was thinking of.
Something that needs, but that's different because that
I know exactly what you mean.
Wow, here's a new edition of 40k, whereas this was, hold on, you thought you knew Horus Heresy. Let's forget all that. Let's start again. Let's go.
Also, you're not going to have something that's been around and been popular for as long as the Horus Heresy miniatures game had been around and had longevity, but without another edition. I mean, you think the edition cycle of the other games. This was also a game being brought into, arguably, the main range alongside your Age of Sigmars and your Warhammer 40,000s. That that's not a small thing. The only other time that happened was Lord of the Rings.
I was about to say, Lord of the Rings is the only close comparison.
But that was the only other one that would be brought into the main range.
Yeah,
Of sort back in what was it, 2000s?
Yeah, and now you're never going to see such a huge sweeping change of the rules because the game set's pretty good. So it was awesome, and I kind of there were issues on the day. You know, it is what it is.
As there were
organisation,
as there were in the lead up to it. But yes, I think it's interesting that was a focal point because that was where it was really coalescing, the hype at that point. But I think the hype across the year really was quite substantial.
What's funny is within there was some negative reaction in the Heresy community, but I'm not sure I saw any real negative reaction outside of the Heresy community.
No,
I think there was an expectation, and it was
negativity was going to come, or it was likely because it was change, and change
not just that. I just think people didn't think through it and thought it was for them.
Oh, the event.
There was a huge element. Yeah, no. I thought there was a huge element that weekend was for Heresy players, and it it wasn't really a little bit maybe. I think GW could have shouted that from the rooftop, and Heresy players still would have gone expecting it to be for them.
It would be a weirdly negative.
It wouldn't change anything. Heresy players still would have.
No, exactly. It wouldn't have changed anything, and it would be a weirdly negative.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't.
This event's not for you. I mean, no one's ever going to say that. They'd say,
no.
For. But
what I'm saying is they could have said it, and it wouldn't have changed a thing. For them.
I agree. I agree with that completely. I feel also because of when it was, we were still finding our way into social events of a certain size. I feel like it turns out, and I'm not sure anyone would have predicted it. It turns out actually that could have been 3 or 4 times the size, and it would have still been well attended, if not sold out. I think it could have been very popular because you'd have had new people who were curious, who arguably that event was more for, and you would have had people who just wanted to celebrate a new edition, who were diehard fans already of the Heresy and were always going to be. And they could have both been to that, along with all the other types of people who might have wanted to attend it, or people with their own reasons. So I think that would have been quite good, but I think that would have been a hell of a call to make, a risky one to make as well. Yeah, let's go and hire a completely independent venue and set up this massive thing.
We've also kind of seen with Warhammer Fest, I think they've gone, if we're going to hire a big venue, a separate venue, it needs to be worthwhile. Like, I don't think they're going to go and hire small venues again. And I say small venues, like they're not hiring the NEC or the or the Rico Arena. Like they're not small venues. So
I'm looking forward to see how this version of Warhammer Fest is going to work.
We'll move on. We're still on 2022. So give me another one.
Right. Next. Well, leads into it in a minute. I'll go more specific. My second one was the trailer/launch events. We touched on the launch event itself, so we'll segue into the trailer. I was quite surprised when that landed. I didn't think they would necessarily go down that level of support, that level of kind of launch.
What, spending £1 million on a...
Well, exactly. An animation of that nature, that is a big deal. And I thought that trailer was one of the better ones, actually.
Cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And any animation of that nature, when you think what is involved, you're having to model all those items, and then, I mean, it's a huge investment in time, money, and design. And I thought it was extremely well executed.
Yeah.
I really did. I thought that was talking about that. I mean, we touched on launch events. I thought the trailer was a marker of that. GW have had for some time, not a formula, but they have a certain way that if you start seeing certain teaser trailers, if you start seeing things launched in a certain way, I mean, you could argue we're seeing it now with this the 40k Arcs of Omen thing. If you've got something that leads into something, and particularly you've got a almost like a teaser trailer or a trailer campaign leading up to a significant trailer, which then launches the main thing. It's one of their major releases because that's the only way they can afford the kind of resources to make those. The trailer in particular, though, I thought was so well executed. It got you properly excited for what this was going to be, and I thought they did that with a bang. So I thought it was nice for something to live up to the significance one puts on that, which I certainly did, and then for it to live up to it was cool.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, and to drop it at Adepticon was a little bit of a surprise. It was like, well, they're going to save that for a fest period, that kind of thing. Obviously, I was aware that something was coming. Wasn't aware of that. And it all part of that hype train, isn't it?
Yeah, and so it sort of led on from that, really. What was your second one?
Well, it's really tricky, this one. I think it might be the Horus Ascended model.
Okay.
But not for the model. But for what that represents.
Okay.
18 more.
It is a good model, though.
It's a good model. Of course it is, Sam.
Yeah.
It's 18 more Primarchs. Like, it's okay, they're going to re-release Heresy. What are they going to do? Back when everyone was like, "Oh, we're going to see some plastic models, amazing." Like what can you do with Heresy? We've got loads of stuff already. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, here's a commitment. There's 18 more Primarchs coming. It's like, whoa, that is, and whatever else we get alongside it. Like, how long did it take? How long did it take to release 18 Primarchs? First time around. Basically 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say that was in the 10 years, wasn't it? It did take that. They didn't get it within
Zagatai was the start of last year.
Yeah.
So, right. So
might even have been longer than 10, actually.
Yeah, it might have gone into 11. Either way. No, because it was, we did the 10-year anniversary, didn't we, in the summer? So 10. Anyway, either way, doesn't matter. It's a 10-year commitment, maybe slightly less.
Which probably less because there's probably more resources being put into.
Also, it's quicker to do it on CAD than it is.
As long as you are proficient, but yes.
Well, he is now. Sam is proficient now.
It shows. Yeah.
It doesn't. It show. But I say 18 more of those models is a proper commitment. So, and it's just layering of stuff, isn't it? It's okay. They've dropped that video. They spent $1 million on that video, £1 million, whatever. On the video, they've gone, you're going to get a load of new plastics. Here's a new Kratos in plastic. You're like, whoa, amazing, cool. Right, but how much are we going to get? Okay, well, we're going to do this. Oh, we got a Spartan, and it looks like it can make other stuff. Wow, that's amazing, cool. Here's 18 Primarchs. We've already got 18 Primarchs. No, boom. Like,
going to be new versions.
And I know some people are like,
and to come out and say that as well is they didn't have to. They didn't have to make that kind of commitment.
No, because Horus Ascended needs a model, Lorgar Ascended needs a model. Down the line, we assumed that they were going to use the plastic Demon Princes for the Primarch version, all that stuff. We didn't need a new Dawn. Dawn's perfectly fine, But to say no, we are doing it that shows you a long-term commitment of what they're doing. So when there is a dry period, because there will be a dry period, there'll be a few months where we don't get as many releases as we do another time. It's just a reminder of it's not going anywhere. They've, unless something catastrophic happens, they're not. Their plans are to be here for another 8 years producing this stuff. Just based on that. So, I think that was a big call. If you look into it, I think that's part of the problem is we do with those kind of people.
What we're here for.
But I mean, even subconsciously, other people must see that. Like we're not just throwing you some plastics and keep buying the old toys in resin. It's like,
I think it could have been easy to miss the fact that it was written down in one of their articles that their intention was to release all 18 again. I think even a reasonably involved individual could have missed that line.
Yeah.
So I think it could be. I think the significance of that could have been missed on people, or more specifically, I think it could have been missed. What a level of commitment that actually is.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's a good point.
That's Sam busy for how many years, isn't it? He's
Mhm.
going to do other stuff around it, but his prime role is going to be, unless they have extended it out.
It can't be him alone, surely.
Well, I don't
It
know.
must be a team.
With CAD, it could. Yeah, absolutely. Although, don't get me wrong, like he might hand over bits and pieces, I think he did Horace's base himself because it's skulls in CAD, like it's boom, 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 boom. But we had really good versions of Primarchs. We had Edgar, we had Rob, I can't remember his name. Mine's gone blank. Who did Alfaris? Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Forgive me. So we had a few who did it, but it's still serious. I suspect Sam will be doing most of them.
I agree. He would certainly be. I would have thought
If not all of them.
I'd imagine there will be others.
Anyway, all good.
My third and final was the community response to the launch, and I don't mean just the Heresy. I mean it's sort of the hobby community. Specifically, if I had to pick a specific thing within that, I would say the number of tutorials and painting videos that just exploded that were Heresy specific. I'm still enjoying watching a range of different videos on how to paint your Legion of choice, for example. But I thought the community response generally, because there was a huge amount of content suddenly appeared, which I thought was reflective of how well received it was as a release. And generally, I would say the response was overwhelmingly positive. You've touched on some of the negatives within the Heresy community. It's not, you can't get 100% positivity on these things. But I thought for a launch,
crotchety old community, like there's a lot of older gamers in that.
Yeah, and I thought overwhelmingly it was positive.
Yeah. So my third was my Twitter, feed. I started playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So my Twitter feed started with a lot of Warhammer Fantasy Battle players. As you go through, you find some more 40k ones and whatever, and then there weren't many Heresy people on it back in the day, but it's grown and grown and grown that way. I've still got a lot of those people that I've followed for other reasons, and Heresy started appearing everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's very few there's very few dedicated Heresy people on my Twitter feed, but I was seeing mates, people I follow, just picking up Heresy models, raving about them, painting them up, and it just took off. And it was at that point and it was those people like Darcy Bono, who was like, I'm reading the book and I've decided to paint this model as well. And then it was someone else like her doing the same kind of thing, and it was like, this is huge. Like, do people, because there are elements in every community where they only look at themselves, and I think our community has a slightly higher percentage of that, where it's all quite an enclosed circle, because 40k players are 40k players, which is ridiculous. But I was seeing, I'm almost outside of that a little bit. I don't get too involved in the closed circles if I can help it. And it was like, this game's huge. This game's big, really big.
Yeah.
And that's not just me down the club seeing 5 people come down and going, oh, it's really big because 5 people are playing in Rust Hall on a Tuesday night.
It was really thinking about it and saying, hang on, there's groups of people here who would have had no interest in this before.
They're all
completely independent. Yep.
All around the world playing Heresy. And it's like they've hit it, they've got it right. Like, are there issues? Yeah, of course.
That swings it back to your first question as well about, what would you improve? And I thought, well, actually, I mean, we were looking for something there, but I thought there was a lot they got right. I think the launch box was very well judged.
Yes.
I thought that what was in it was surprising and very well thought through as a launch box, as was the Liber books. I thought were a good idea. The culmination of that project that must have been put together to create a launch set of stuff, I thought was very successful.
There's no good way to launch a game, relaunch a game like this. There's no good way to do it because you are trying to reach people who've got 3 Resin Heresy armies.
I would argue there's no perfect way to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't say there's no good way. It's always bad. I wouldn't say that. I'd say this was quite a good example of launching this game.
You can always be fine. Just because you're not good doesn't mean you have to be bad. You can be fine, satisfactory. But yeah,
fair enough.
Essentially, there's a medium ground to what we're saying. There is no perfect / really good way to release a box like this because it has to hit so many markets, and it's building into a game which has already got a wide base of things available to it, and it also has to be specific enough, but not be too specific, like with the Liber books and stuff like that. And then you've got all the potential issues of having rules for stuff that doesn't have models, and how that opens them up to being taken advantage of. You've got just everything piled into one, and there's no way to do that and be like, that is the one way you can do it. Like you have to take some losses somewhere. But I think they did quite a good job of getting the box right and getting that information out. I say potentially they could have been a little bit quicker with some of the stuff, as you said. We still haven't got demons.
Factions, maybe. Yeah, I think that's a thing. I would say yes, that would have been nice had that been launched in a different way, perhaps as a way of covering it. But that's a tricky judgment, and if something you had to give, that was probably going to be the thing you would do because there's logical reasons. You wouldn't overwhelm people. How do you can't, if you release all the books like that, those books diminish in quality. You end up with those sort of softback index type books, which people know are temporary, which isn't ideal. I'd much rather have the hardback, nice quality books that we have now. Yeah, I thought that was generally well handled.
Yeah. Yep, all good.
2023.
Yeah, okay, go for it then. What are you? Is it a hope? Is it a wish list? Is it it's happening that I'm looking forward
Across
to?
my 3 choices, I'd say all of those are covered. The first of those, to call it a hope, is perhaps, I think, is not quite right, because I think this will happen.
Expectation.
But it's a question of when. But something I'm looking forward to is plastic infantry.
You think we already have in 2023?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm hopeful that we might see. No, I'm not talking here about just different marks of armor. I'm talking about the other troop choices. Yep, I'm talking about your breaches, your despoilers, your assault troops. I'd love to see those available in plastic in particular, because I think the resin version is resin is a particular thing to work with.
It's a hurdle.
Think your mass, it is a hurdle. No matter which way you look at it, it's something that requires an extra lot. There are friends of mine who have been modelling, are capable modelers and painters who shun resin for numerous reasons. Plastic opens that up, and it's just frankly more enjoyable, particularly if your time is limited. It is a more enjoyable thing to work with. So I think for something that is often the core of your collection, particularly for a gaming force, let alone just a display piece, I do think seeing those sorts of things there will open up variety in lists and in games, and frankly would just be enjoyable.
There was a woman today actually on Twitter who was looking at the latest Necromunda shown off models, and it was like, oh, it's in resin. And just like, I don't know. Give me plastic or resin, I'll take plastic every day.
But all day, yep, agree.
Yeah, it's easier to work with. It's cheaper. You can cut it up easy and like attach stuff. Easier. I think it is easier to work with personally. It costs cheaper. There's less issues with it, like breaking stuff off, all that kind of stuff, and
it's typically more widely available.
Well, Heresy is available for sale coming up. We talked about it like in between time, we've gone past the Sunday. It is now up. It's going to be up for sale this weekend on GW's website, because they can now sell resin on GW's website because they've changed the formula of it. But it's still got a 15 plus or a 16 plus age limit on it because of the nature of what you need to do with it, resin dust and all that jazz. So yeah, that is still a stepping stone, a hurdle of completing your army. Is I wouldn't mind some assault marines. Oh, okay. I got to go and buy resin, and it's costing me 40 gold quid, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's something we need to do.
Shall I buy these 20 marines for £36, or shall I buy these 5 marines for 39? And these are an older sculpt. They are a core troop choice, particularly perhaps a legion favours a particular way of putting their forces together. It just lends itself. I mean, breaches, assault marines, and arguably despoilers would be just very good to have, I think. And I think it opens up a core part of the game. So I'd love to see it sooner rather than later. I'm not fussed about what mark of armor it is, frankly. If it's all Mark 6, cool. That's because that would be something we haven't necessarily seen before, we haven't had before. Would be consistent with obviously the tacticals we've got now. I'd just like to see those. That would be a hope for me, and I would hope we'd see them sooner rather than later.
Cool. Maybe we should come back to this and see what happens. I'm going to pick Warhammer Fest because I hope specialist design studios are there with designers, painters. I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. But
you're thinking of for access point of view, actually, the ability to go and talk.
I want to walk up to Sam and say, "Hey man, Horus was amazing. What were the issues? What's happening with your next one? How far through the next one are you? Blah, 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 and maybe not get many answers."
Interesting. That's an interesting point, though. It's an interesting conversation, because will that event, at the size that it is, lend itself to that? Clearly, you can have side rooms. Clearly, you can have little sort of mini open days within the larger event itself. But given that it's a 3 day event, given that it's a 3 day event,
plus also they sell more tickets, but there are, I don't know how many tournaments going on, which
at least 4, 5.
Yeah, bigger tournaments than they had at Warhammer Fest previously. So all those people aren't going to have that much time during the day to be able to do that. Plus, there's a lot of other stuff to do. People will be in the cinema. People will be playing laser tag. I want them to. People will be hanging around Golden Demon. I would hope that we still have some form of access. I think GW will still do it. I think there was a major draw of. It might be hard to do. It might be you might be fighting past a few more people to go and have a look, but you've got 3 days to do it. So yeah, I hope so, and I hope, because it is, admittedly, you and I have been to lots of these events now. We know people, even if it's just by face rather than name or whatever. But I've become friends with a few of them, and it's great to see Mark Bedford again. I haven't seen him in a long time now to chat to. I haven't seen Sam. And, I've messaged him on, we've had very brief chats where I've messaged him and we talked about stuff. I haven't actually got to be like, hey man, how you doing? All that kind of stuff. But also to talk about, even if, say Les is there, painter. I've been able to chat to Les because when I've gone up to Warhammer World, we know each other, we chat, but that's because I know him. If you want to go and talk to the painters about, the Sons of Horus you did for that army, kind of, we found this really good trick.
I've always enjoyed chatting to the artists as well when we've done Black Library things or anything where Forge World was at the specialist games, and previously Forge World and Heresy weekenders. Speaking to the artists and what their thinking was, because the amount of design work they've had to put into those things.
Yeah.
It's really good chatting to them, and the model design is even it's certainly on a par, if not greater. Chatting to them and their sort of design process is one of the highlights of the event. Actually, I found. Now you say that,
and also brings you closer to what GW are doing. Like, it gives. So one of the things that regularly, particularly on American podcasts, Carl Tuttle used to talk about this all the time. He was like reminding people how much the people who work for GW care, because you expect them when they're on Warhammer TV to say that, but when you meet them, like, you can't hide that, you can't fake that.
That's very true, and particularly not if you show a modicum of interest and respect in return.
Yeah.
Particularly, ideally, I mean, it's helpful if it's a professional one as well, where you're saying, "Hey, I use this tool, or I've had a go at this, or I've done whatever." I think any hobbyist who's had a go at anything, you could show that across, and you see some of them, and the way they come back. The designers, I'm thinking of a number of the designers I've chatted to now at different events. And the enthusiasm to say, "Oh, did you spot this?" And "Oh, yeah, I was doing this, and I did it that way." And I thought about that, and we had 10 different versions of that, and I wanted to get them all in. You can't. That isn't something you put on. You don't. And equally, it's not something you're going to put out as something you put as a promotional video or something like that. It's something you can only get chatting to people at an event like that. Almost around their desk kind of thing. Yeah, I that's a very, very good choice. I think that would be something that would be very exciting if they did that, either hopefully at Warhammer Fest, because that's a big, big deal, or another event.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many other events I'm going to get to, so I want it at Warhammer Fest.
Yeah.
Frankly,
it's a long year.
Yeah.
It's a long year. You never know.
It's a long year with a baby. So
yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Next.
Number 2. Get this thing back up again. This was the one I was probably least certain of, but I'm going to put it in anyway. Factions expansion. And this was slightly born out of the conversation we were having earlier about seeing the odd sort of curious introduction of something like Agents of the War Master is unusual. It's something we haven't seen directly. We've only had like one or two. I think seeing potentially even into the introductions of new factions, I think would be really interesting. I think it's great that we have so many. I don't think we'll see whole new factions, but I think that will be quite interesting, even if it's just the odd squad or the odd model in the individual things. I think that would be really interesting to see, like we're seeing with the faction of the Agents of the War Master. We haven't seen that codified in that way before.
Yes, so I'm going to tie that in, I think, with one of mine, which is I'm waiting to see that first. I say first. The new model, like the Kratos kind of did it, and it was like, wow, what's that? But it almost feels like we're doing that at launch, and by accounts, it's part of the reason we got plastic. So it feels like, an integral part of that whole process. So it feels like that kind of drove it. Cool. Now they're going back and doing everything, but surely they're going to bring us something. Like, they can't just do stuff we don't know about. So they're going to bring us something funky, new, cool model. And I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's going to be a tank, a flyer, whether it's going to be Demons of the Ruinstorm unit in plastic. I don't know what it is, but there's going to be that one.
That's kind of the point, isn't it? That you don't know what it is, and that's kind of cool.
But I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Because at some point this year, I am certain we're going to get a model that just like goes.
Yeah, it's kind of what I mean. Yeah, I think it's a good way of putting it. It's in terms of an expansion of not just taking what we already know and releasing it in a format that is frankly superior. We're saying they should switch from resin to plastic, but it's about also adding depth to the whole thing. And I think and arguably breadth. I think that is quite exciting and is a hope for 23. It's not essential, but it will just be slightly more unexpected.
Yeah, and I think with the plastic revolution of Heresy,
Mm.
that we could see something different as well. Like we could see what can we do in plastic. And I hope we get that. I hope that's the kind of thing we get, where it's like, we've thought of doing something like this, but let's see what we can do.
I thought, I would say Necromunda has led the charge with that, because there's been so much put into that, both in resin and in plastic, that you wouldn't have otherwise expected.
Yeah, I don't mean like pushing the I don't mean pushing the boundaries of plastic.
I'm talking about.
Sure.
I'm talking about in terms of models. No, I know what you mean.
Expanding on the law.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's stuff that you wouldn't have expected them.
So
you couldn't have predicted.
Yeah, for people who are new to Heresy, when they dropped the Leviathan, it was like a what's that moment. Because it just wasn't around. It was like, whoa. Even when they dropped the Mastodon, we kind of knew it was, hoped it was coming, knew it was coming. But then to see it was like, whoa. Those kind of moments. I just want to know what the big one of 2023 of those is going to be.
And it's actually a very good time for something like that, because I would suggest that the other time we tended to get that was when the legions were being developed. But now that the legions pretty much all have at least one power armored special unit, at least one Terminator special unit, dreadnoughts and everything else. The legions aren't going to be expanded necessarily in the same way, and certainly if they are, a lot of that character. I mean, I'm thinking again. I've referenced it before. As soon as the Galvorback were first previewed, people went absolutely insane. But seeing a Legion generic release or something else,
I think part of the issue is that Galvorback was early enough that it was still relevant for everyone. Whereas we reached a point a few years ago where cool unit for X Legion is cool, but new thing for everyone to be able to take is a level above that. So we're at that point now where it has to be. And the reason I bring it in now is because you're talking about opening up the factions a little bit, and maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's not a Marine thing. Maybe it's not even a mainline thing. Maybe it's just something that comes out that's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't expecting that, but that's awesome that we can all get to that. Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of what I'm thinking with it as well, where they suddenly go, right, here's a boxed set of a unit that you didn't think of, and it suddenly opens up and something everyone could use. I kind of thought that when they brought Custodians and Sisters along in some ways. It was like, oh, okay, that's cool that you've done that, and that now suggests that could be a whole range in and of itself. But for now, that one box set or two is going to cover a massive range of things, and you sort of think, that would be very cool if they did something.
I suppose if we didn't have it, if everything was still going according to plan as it was before, whatever year it was, then it would have been Dark Mechanicum.
Yeah,
that would have been it, and you never know, that might still be it. But I'm not sure the timescale is going to add up for that. But you never know. Who knows? We just don't know. Go on, give us your third.
Game modes. I'd like to see some alternative game modes. So I'd like to see the number of times that friends of mine in particular have said, I would love to play Heresy Kill Team, which we can do. People have done fan-made conversions. People have done whatever else. It just seems ripe that there will be other versions, possibly too soon. I'm not sure 23 will be when that comes around. But versions of that where you can play smaller, not arguably bigger, or different styles. Again, 40k has just got it. It's coming around now with these boarding actions. Something like that.
Boarding actions is one that it seems, because that's almost, there's only a few new rules in it, I think. It's more of a narrative.
But there are quite. It's very similar to things we've seen in Heresy in the past.
Yeah.
In that it's very restricted in what you can take because you're on the.
And that becomes part of its.
Yeah, part of its appeal is to
style.
say, suddenly a dreadnought is it's not a good example because they're terrifying at the best times, but suddenly certain things are terrifying because you don't have the big things available. That suddenly certain things become a bigger fish in a much smaller pond. But just in terms of game modes, it just means you can play it in different ways, play it faster, play it in smaller sessions or whatever. You can play tighter games. I mean, some friends are like, when we had this absolutely enormous mega game that took us a whole weekend, the Friday night when we turned up, we just played essentially what I'm talking about, a sort of Zone Mortalis version of running around in spaceship corridors. We had like a couple of squads aside. It was one of the most entertaining games compared with when you just getting all the toys. It was entertaining for a whole different reason. Seeing some Alpha Legion infiltrators teleport away from a Imperial Fist gun line just at the key moment to end up in the engine room and destroy something. I mean, there are stories we're still talking about from that. Love to have some game modes that support that, and I just feel like we're in a place that could really well suit that.
Yeah, I'm not sure beyond the White Dwarf thing that we'll get that this year.
No. It's the sort of thing that, much like we've seen with well, not quite, but the way they've released books for things like Titanicus and Necromunda.
Well,
I could see a little campaign style
with that. I just wonder if they've got too much work to do because of the amount of stuff the amount of stuff we haven't got in the main Liber books that's in the PDF. I wonder if but yeah, it's cool. I mean, the good thing is, like, I'm going to go and buy all those board and action things because I actually want to play some of that for 40k.
Yeah,
and I might just play 30k with it and take the principles and just do it.
It's quite an easy conversion to do.
Yeah,
you could have taken it across
because most of it isn't rules. Most of it, as you say, is restrictions and styles and
it's
layouts.
A particular way of measuring. I mean, that's about from what I've seen. That's all it is.
And I'm waiting for like Dark Fantastic Meals to bring out an STL. The one problem with Born Actions and the new Kill Team is your walls the maps are very definite in what's there. Like wall section A has to be where wall section A is, because I think for some of them it does matter, access points and things like that can affect the game to a detriment if you don't do it right. Not just unbalanced, but actually make the game not as fun. So I'm waiting for Dark Fantastic Meals to bring out a new set that's the equivalent of those. And then I could just get like multiple sets and make a big set or what have you. That's cool. So mine is slightly because if we get what you're talking about, I think it would come through. The big one for me is the first campaign book, because I think it's going to be AT / Necromunda / there's going to be I would agree. This battle, this whatever, this engagement, and they haven't given us any information on how they're moving forwards.
No,
really, beyond getting rules out for demons and whatever. We're basically at the end of that roadmap. Those last few bits to do. And we don't know how, and I think that is a bit of a mistake, as we said last show. I think they should have updated that. I think that a roadmap should roll forwards once you've been 6 months. At least you should be pushing that forwards. But if we go and get campaign book, the scouring of blah blah blah, and it introduces 2 or 3 Legion specific units, or what have you, that go along with it, and one new thing, like how are they going to do that, which to me makes sense, or is there going to be a slightly different approach? I think the game, so Necromunda came out with bits and pieces, and then once they had enough, consolidated that into army books and things like that. Heresy might not need to do the whole army book thing, because you just do the Libers, you update them as you go along, in a different style. But maybe you do. Maybe it goes on that way. I don't know.
It's an interesting because you've got something like Titanicus, where they were releasing books based around specific conflicts. It wasn't just campaigns. They were some of them were very large campaigns, or whole sectors almost of the Heresy specific to Titan Warfare. And it would introduce a suite of new rules often with those things. It might even introduce a new Titan type.
Yeah.
Titanicus, bizarrely, actually was a bit of an exception here because a lot of the other games, and I include the bigger games, 40k, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, increasingly as well. Warcry has recently really doubled down on it, and I think Warcry and Kill Team have really gone for it with this, where they're releasing box sets. And it's box
Yep.
set that is how they're doing it. It's not the campaign book per se, although there is a campaign book in the box set. But the box set itself is that, and they're not limited release exactly, but they exist. I mean, they're using the term seasons now, but for different things. I wonder if that could be a thing.
Well, okay, so the reason I'm not sure that would be the case is, so for Necromunda, you're talking about small model count forces.
Yes.
So
and
you're
Warcry
talking
and
about
Kill Team.
Yeah, so you're talking about a 6 sprue set, 3 sprues for each side, some terrain, which is then going to be sold anyway, and a book to go with it. And when you're talking about 40k or Age of Sigmar, those boxes tend to be 2 army forces with 1 new model in each and existing models within those. So to do that for Heresy would be trickier. They'd have to have a hybrid of having more newer models within that. I think we'll get narrative campaign books more like the way 40k and Age of Sigmar, like the Abaddon thing that's coming out soon, which then introduces a story arc or a narrative aspect and things within it. I think. I mean, I could be wrong. They might come up with a different system.
They were trying to do that, I think, or attempted that with the Vigilus books, where I think 2 of them that covered that campaign, and now they're doing it with the Arcs of Omen thing. So with 40k, actually, he's close to that. I think Age of Sigmar might do something similar, but they've kind of got their General's Handbook.
They did but they also because they did Kragnos. What's her name? Dark Elf. Marathi and someone else. So they essentially 40k and Age of Sigmar have 2 similar systems within that, and they Vigilus was a campaign that went across both. But they seem to have moved to this kind of narrative storytelling, which ties, and this is the one difference that ties into how they're progressing their main storyline.
Yes.
As well. So that aspect of it is very different to Heresy. And therefore maybe a hybrid of that and the Titanicus, picking a location but telling that story within that location, and maybe Specialist Design don't have the capacity to have their writers telling those kind of stories in that same way, so maybe they do it slightly differently. But it would be a different beast from Titanicus because they're probably not, because Titanicus bringing a Titan in also has to bring other things with that specific thing.
And bringing Titan is a big deal in Titanicus.
Can be, yeah, absolutely, depending on how they want to do it, especially if it doesn't work in a regular way, like the Warbringer or Warmaster and all that. But what you can do in Heresy is they can just say, this is the engagement of X where 3 forces were involved. We will tell you a bit about that thing, focusing on the brand new units that we're giving you rules for. 2 Legion specific and a generic vehicle that's being used, or however many they want to do that and work their way through different things. Will that be quick enough? Will it actually go more like a Spike Blood Bowl thing, where they're like, okay, every quarter we're going to bring you, here's a unit, here's where it was used, here's 2 units, here's a battle where those 2 face off against each other, and here's a little bit more, and we'll sell you that little booklet, that end of the year you get an annual. I mean, that is actually not a bad way, because that allows you to be more flexible in your approach to releasing stuff, and therefore allowing, remember we've got 18 legions plus all the auxiliary forces to constantly release stuff for. And the one problem you have with Heresy is someone's always going to be the last person to get something because there's so much stuff. So Yeah, if you did 4 of those magazines a year and had 8 units for 8 different legions released, it's still. Yeah, I think they'll have. I don't think it could be the only way forwards. I think you'll still get your exemplary battles to introduce stuff or something like that. I think you'll get stuff introduced and then brought into a publication in an official capacity.
Yes, I think that will be the way. I sort of feel it's a really interesting idea, and it's a really interesting parallel to draw because it's one that I've never have occurred to me. Instinctively, it doesn't feel like the way Heresy would go. It feels
No, it
very
doesn't.
specific to Blood Bowl, but some sort of hybrid. That would be a really interesting method of way of doing it, of which perhaps even the releases ramp up in some way. It feels like the speed of releases on other games is quite high, with the frequency of seasons that they're planning on things like Warcry, Necromunda, Kill Team, even Underworlds and things. But just
Maybe
thinking how they do that.
Maybe we get a bit of everything. Maybe we get a box every now and then, as well as campaign books, and then instead of a spike, but we are getting online rules things. Like, why are some of those units in the PDFs, not the Libras? Are they being reviewed? Or that's I feel there's a lot of that going on. They're like,
Certainly feel
shoot,
like
we
I feel
haven't gone through all the Ultramarines properly. Put them in that book because we haven't tested them as much as we want to.
I feel like the Termite is in that category. The Termite's omission from a number of things is surprising. The fact that's in a PDF, I thought, okay, there's clearly something there where they want to do something more with it.
Yeah, there's a reason that it can't be just that they're not making it in plastic.
No.
Like there has to be kind of an aspect, or maybe they are having issues with on release giving people an idea of what's happening. We don't know, but that first book, because they're going to give us background because that's what they do. Like they've got 9 black books worth of background. Are they still available, all those black books?
That's a very good question. I was actually thinking, will they cover the events that were covered in those black books again?
I'm sure they will to a point, because what do new people do?
Well, quite. And as you say, are they available? But the problem is with them, the lore is fantastic. Arguably, some of Games Workshop's best publications for lore, and I think had a greater influence on what GW was doing elsewhere. However, the rules portions of those would be not deliberately. They would be full on contradictory and confusing because you can't use them in their current form. So how do you make those available? Probably not. So you've got all of that lore.
Well, I think they'll eventually go on my
Vault.
Warhammer, whatever it's called.
The Vault,
The Vault.
Warhammer Plus.
So I'm looking down. I can't even find books as a section in Heresy.
I reckon they'll have taken them off sale.
Yeah, they're not there that I can see, unless I'm being blind. In fact, if you type book into Forge World, you get Warhammer 40k core book.
Type Tempest. Tempest has got models. Malevolence or
Retribution did not match any products.
Right, there you
go. Yeah. What was the Space Wolf one called?
Inferno.
Yeah. No. Inferno Cannon and Inferno Lance. So they're not there.
Those are gone, which is entirely understandable.
I introduced my mate Fred to 30k, and I'm like, oh yeah, you should read all about Prospero, mate. And he's like, okay, how do I read about that? I'm like, well, there's a novel, but all the best stuff's in this black book. All right. Oh no, you can't get it anymore. So that information has to come out somehow. The vault, I think, is definitely one way to do it, but I don't think it'll be the only way.
No, because I think people will still want them in the printed form. So you could just releasing those in some way, probably with. I mean, that would be the logical thing to do. Start working through a series of campaigns.
Yeah, exciting times. And when as well, like, yeah, I would hope by Well, by the summer, you don't want it to be longer than a year for sure.
Will certainly be interesting to see what. I don't think LVO is going to bring a great deal of Heresy stuff, but Adepticon and Fest, I think, will be very interesting this year.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But interesting stuff happening with LVO anyway. But
Yeah, I think we might see models there about this is coming, but I think in terms of this is what we've got planned for the game, I think that'll be at the bigger
yeah,
event.
I think. Well, the problem is right. Like even at every preview, they'll show you this army's coming for one thing, this army's coming for another thing, this thing's coming for another game, but there's only one big reveal every
Yeah, true.
preview.
Yeah.
And I wonder if LVO might be like Tyranids, 40k, or I don't know if they just seem well, but Tyranids could be one because that feels like it's a few months out. So yeah,
It's probably a bit soon for that, actually, but yeah.
maybe feels like something like that, but we shall see, I suppose. Right. Should we call that one
Exciting.
there?
It was particularly. I thought it was a very interesting proposition. I thought what you suggested that sort of look back over there and a good idea.
Someone can remind us at the end of the year to come back and look at what we were hoping for and review.
What do we pitch out there, and how many of those that have happened, and how many of those are falling over into our 2024s?
And did they live up to it? Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. Awesome. Right. Well, we'll leave that there then. And
lovely. Well, I thought that was a good review. Good stuff.
Speak to you later.
Speak to you soon.
You've made it to the end of another episode of the Imperial Truth podcast. Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback about the show, if you want to tell us if you think we missed anything major with our look forward tos and look back ons, then please feel free to get in touch. Either comment on the Facebook post, tweet, or send an email into greg@theimperialtruth.com. We're imperial_truth on Twitter. And at Child and Fang on Instagram as well, if you want to do it that way. We're looking ahead into the new year. We've got some ideas bubbling around. Again, if you've got any ideas for the show, anything like that, please feel free to let us know. We're always keen to hear ideas, see what's going on, all that kind of jazz. I'm just going to pick up something. I just want to shout out Navinda on Twitter. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks for the tweet. Someone who's getting back into the community and listening to the show. That's some very kind words from you there. So thank you for that. If you want to help support the show, one of the best things you can do is tell other people about it and get them to listen. You can also leave reviews on your podcast host of choice. Podcast catcher of choice, well, however you listen to podcasts, basically. Give us a 5-star rating and feedback to us there. You can also, if you really want to, you can support us on Patreon. Big thank you to all our Patreon supporters. I love you guys. We also have the merch as well. There's a link in the show notes to get t-shirts and things like that, so you can also go in there. Again, if anyone's done any of that, that's a big thank you from us. I don't really want to ramble on too long here, as you probably know. Some of these are quite short and sweet, but we will be back soon. Thank you for bearing with us. Christmas and schedules and everything, as usual. Hoping to find a bit of a better balance in that as we move out of this period and things maybe settle down and babies maybe sleep a little bit longer. That kind of stuff. So I will leave it there. It's going to be exciting. You're going to get the hopefully we'll get something in the LVO preview. I can't remember which weekend it is, but it's the last weekend of January, I'm pretty sure. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll probably talk about it if they drop anything nice for us. But until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.